Hey, my friends, this is the art of prepping. The world is changing quite fast, actually, and it's kind of hard to know what's going to happen next almost anymore. Like it's the fundamentals of how things work has changed so much. It's kind of hard to know what is normal and what is not. And it's everything from how government works now. In some locations, government is so heavy-handed, you just don't even know what to expect next. They're just doing things, fiat, executive actions, all kinds of emergency orders, many of which are not even constitutional, but they're just trying to push them through anyways. And of course, there's countries like Australia, New Zealand, that are getting to be pretty heavy-handed in how they deal with the pandemic, even though there's really not a lot of rationale behind it. And you're also seeing, of course, places like China. It just continues to be just a nightmare. Can you imagine that, living in China? Having to put up with all of that, just that whole dictatorship, that whole just unbelievably dark environment to live in. You're watched all the time. You have to be careful what you say. You can't, do certain things or you'd be arrested. Things that you can normally do in most other countries, but there it's illegal. I mean, you talk about travel restrictions. It's hard to even move around throughout China, even if you're a citizen of China. And then there's the concentration camps. If you're of a certain type of person, they have those re-education camps for you. Who knows how many people are in those? Looks like there's a lot of Muslim people, but apparently there's even other groups that are there, possibly between 2 to 3 million, maybe even more. I mean, the world is pretty crazy. We have all kinds of human trafficking going on in all types of countries, even first world countries. I mean, there's all kinds of child trafficking in particular, all kinds of underground markets for human slaves. And it sounds like it's would be even possible, but this is what's going on. And of course, we have all the craziness with this pandemic and how governments are completely overreacting, even here in the US. And the beautiful part about some of this, if there is any kind of a silver lining to this, is that people are starting to wake up to some degree and people are starting to move out of larger cities. And that's really good. And so, yeah, I mean, in particular in New York City, I just really get a kick out of reading articles week after week of all these people leaving the city and even businesses just leaving. And they are so heavy-handed over there in New York. And it's just so difficult, not only just to make a living, because the cost of living is so outrageous compared to almost anywhere else in the country. I mean, give me a break. I mean, like compared to where I live, New York City is around 4.5 times more to live. I mean, why would you want to live there? And so there's just all kinds of people leaving because they want more privacy. They want a lower cost of living. They want more space. They want less crime. They want less politics that are toxic. Like, they want less socialism in their life, basically. And so people are leaving, which is very good. And people also see the writing on the wall that things aren't going to probably get better anytime soon in these larger cities, especially if they're ran by mayors and overseen by governors that really don't have your best interest in mind. And what we're seeing is there's a lot of civil unrest in some of these larger cities as well, and this is another reason people are leaving. And so it is my hope that people continue just to leave these places and start over somewhere else that's a lot more free, and let these cities just kind of fall apart and let them just kind of, self-destruct, because that's what we're seeing. The beginning stages of all this collapse, and it's going to probably be in the large cities. Now, we have still protests going on in pockets around the country here in the U.S., protest for, I guess, racial inequality or something. You got Black Lives Matter, and you got, of course, the anarchy, anti-American way of life group, the Antifa group. So you have those still going on. There's probably other fringe groups that I'm not really that aware of, but I don't even try to keep up with it anymore. But I can tell you that they're still getting together almost every night in some locations, causing fights and fires and destruction and fighting police and all this craziness. And you do have some cities that have, started the process of defunding the police. In some places, they've already done some defunding the police, which is so ridiculous. So, it is my hope that we all have a memory that's going to remember all this. Unfortunately, though, a lot of Americans have a short-term memory, and they just kind of conveniently forget about all this craziness whenever it starts to dissipate. But if you think that you're going to forget, write it down. Write it down in your journal and in your diary, whatever you have to do. Write it on your wall in your house if you have to. Never to vote for these kind of people again. You want different type of leadership. And I'm just going to be clear. I think that in the next series of going to the polls and starting with the presidential election and the House of Representative election coming up here in a few months, it's coming pretty fast, actually. And there's even a few seats open for the Senate. I think that people are going to really kind of be aware because it's still going to be really recent. Some people are going to still be in the midst of all this chaos. They're not going to want to vote for people that are of a certain political mindset that in a lot of ways are promoting the destruction of their living environment. So I hope people really push back at the polls. And I do hope the polls actually really do represent the people who vote. And I hope there's not going to be a lot of voter fraud. We'll have to see. But sometimes, there has been a lot of fraud and sometimes maybe not so much. But I really do hope people just get out there when it comes time to vote and just vote out these people that shouldn't be representing yourself and just America overall. Let's get rid of these people that are full of nonsense. It's so crazy to see who we have representing large cities and towns. It is like amazing. Even the governors that we have in place right now, that what they say is just like, did I just hear it wrong? Sometimes I'll have to play things back a couple times because I'm like, I can't believe that senator or that mayor or that governor or that representative in the House of Representatives said that. It's just sometimes so ignorant, and sometimes it's so racist too. And it really does seem like the people who are complaining the most about racism are pretty much the most racist people that I know. And the people who, don't want division in this country, they're always being attacked by people who are saying that everybody else is racist, but they're the ones that divide the most. The ones that are trying to call out the good people are the ones that really are typically the problem. It's quite amazing. It's quite amazing. It's almost like Antifa. They're trying to say, oh, we're anti-fascist and anti-capitalist and anti-American. And we fight for the little guy and we're like fighting for Black Lives Matter and all those people, the minorities. But they're destroying the neighborhoods of black people. They're destroying America. They're just about anarchy. They're just about hate. And these people are messed up. So I just hope that all can get under control very quickly. I mean, anyone in their right mind, if you are in charge of a city or a town or a state, or even a country, and you start seeing big flare-ups like that, where large portions of an area or a town or city is being burned, or a massive civil unrest where there's like dozens, if not more, injured police officers, I think it should be something that you go right into having the National Guard called out and you just squash that out with force. And you don't allow these things to even get, brew and stuff over time. And so what we see in Seattle is just really unbelievable how this is just allowed to persist. This needs to be squashed. This is just really ridiculous. So I think that, it's kind of hard to break sometimes people's ideology. They just have it ingrained that, this is just how it is, or this is good when it's not even good. It's amazing how many people I even talk to about, kind of sensitive issues, but big, important issues. You can't rationalize sometimes with certain types of people. It's quite amazing when you get to topics like, certain freedoms, should you have the right to have free speech? I mean, there's a lot of people who are like, well, maybe sometimes, but not all the time. Right to bear arms. There's so many people that are like, well, you don't really need them, do you? I'm like, what? Even the whole abortion thing, you would think that really someone that's educated could just kind of figure that one out, right? That's murder. And they're like, well, it should be okay. It's a woman's body. What? So, there are some people, and unfortunately here in the United States, there's quite a few people. I'm kind of hesitant to say the majority, but I think that there's still a very large number, maybe close to half. I don't even know. I hate to even think that it's that many, but it probably could be, that are just bent on this whole progressive ideology of the left, that it's just okay to kill babies and it's okay to disarm a population and to just try to get rid of as many freedoms and liberties as possible because they're evil. And that, you don't really want to have capitalism. We want socialism or various forms of Soviet rule, if you will, through communism or something like a various form of communism. Like, they really think that's better. Like, what kind of perverted, just distorted mind would a person have to think that way? Like, no rational person comes to those conclusions. So it's more than just being brainwashed, because even when you're brainwashed, you can sometimes kind of find yourself out of the brainwashing. Like, you can just use logic and then kind of walk your way out of it. But this is almost like, it's like a mental illness. Like, I almost, honest to God, believe that on some level, there are some people that think just so purely with emotion, and they can't even tap into any type of logic, and they might not even have any personal wisdom to pull from, that literally they are just controlled by their emotion, and they are so inadequate and making judgments on things, and they can't really understand between what is right and what's wrong, what is good for themselves and what's not, what is good for society and what's not. Like, they don't have a moral compass almost. It's almost like they don't even know what that means. It is a very concerning thing to see so many people so confused. And really, I would say that they're lost. A lot of people are just lost. They're just walking around in the world and they're just like, they don't even know where they are, who they are. They don't know what they even stand for. They don't really have any kind of clue. I can't even imagine what that would be like. I would imagine that would be kind of scary, But a lot of these people actually think it's kind of freedom. They kind of laugh about it. They just don't really care. And let me tell you, the future is going to self-destruct if we have too many more of these people that really don't care. They're all just living in the moment, taking up all the resources in the moment, destroying the system that's taken hundreds of years to build. And it's been built by all kinds of people. And so this has been a collective effort. And just to have one or two generations come in and completely destroy it and change it into something that it was never meant to be, into something that's a lot less than what we have and have had in the past, because we've already lost some of it already. That's a very large concern. So I personally pray on this matter quite often. And sometimes I have to talk to friends and family kind of almost like a debriefing, just to kind of, to get it out of my system, because it kind of builds over time. How you kind of have to kind of decompress on something. Like, if you know how things build, and so sometimes making these videos help me to decompress. And so actually I feel quite a bit better now talking about all this and just getting it out. And hopefully maybe it just kind of helps you think. And if you completely think differently than I do, maybe you'll have something to chew on. Maybe just think about what I just said, even though I've said some things that were very Well, some of the things were specific, but some things were not. But just look at the state of the world and those places that have certain ideology. There's a thing, within Christianity and in the Bible, it talks about you can kind of see if something's good or bad just by the fruit that it bears. That's more like a paraphrasing, but basically that's the concept that, you can kind of tell if a person, for example, or a government is really, means well or does good, because you'll see what comes from that action, right? I mean, if a person is hated all across their neighborhood, or everybody that comes across this person, they don't like that person, well, their fruit is rotten, right? They're not really doing anything. So that's in contrast to someone that everybody can't wait to spend time with. So you kind of see like, oh, that person is really well received. They're well received and they're well loved and everybody gets along with that person. So they have really good fruit. They're putting out fruit that is very, I guess, it's very much enjoyed and it's very beneficial. And so I think that's what we need to do more so is look at the fruit of whatever it is that we're kind of in conflict of. And if we can't figure things out, then just look at what has happened, in the past and how things are working right now in the present with someone or something. So when we look at these cities that are self-destructing here in America, or these cities and towns that allow all this violence, and over time they've told the police just to stand down. Well, look at the fruits of that leadership. Look at all the death and destruction and injury. That's not good. And those are not good for you and the country. Those people need to get out. They need to be put out on the street, right? We don't want to have people like that in America, having any kind of level of control or power, any type of level of influence. And so it is my wish that more people would just say, no, I'm not going to go along with this crap anymore. And that's why here on YouTube, I have to really limit myself on the videos I watch because there's so much crap on YouTube. It is horrible, especially on the trending pages and stuff, like what YouTube even promotes. Most of it's complete crap. And it kind of dumbs you down and it just kind of, it's a distraction. And they talk about issues that really aren't important at all. And they kind of make it so that you don't really have any time to find the real issues or to really think about real thoughts, things that really matter, So I would just advise you to be very careful on what you surround yourself with, what you expose yourself with in terms of people or news, media, any of that stuff, even the movies you watch. I would be very, very much on a high alert. I would filter out everything. You don't want some of this stuff to be part of your life, especially a lot of this stuff is just lies. And you don't need all this extra stress. And it's amazing how the media will tell you something and then the media will come back a few months later and go, oh, that wasn't completely true. Or they'll just start talking about a narrative that is completely opposite of what they said a few weeks ago or a few months ago. And you're supposed to just transition seamlessly, even though you're like, well, hold on, you told me something like the opposite though. And I'm doing all this to prepare. And then now you're saying, oh, it's not that anymore. So you have to be really careful about what you believe. And there's a lot of people that are really out to mess with you. And then there's some people who are out to really help you. And you just have to know the difference. And once again, it goes back to the fruits that people bear, right? And you just have to look at it. You have to kind of sometimes do a little research. And if some person has a channel and they've said a lot of things in the past and none of those things have come true, or maybe what they said, the opposite happened, you may not want to listen to that person, right? So enough of me rambling, but hey, I want to thank everyone for sticking around with the channel. The channel is growing really good. I'm doing about a 16 to 20% growth rate every month. So really want to thank you guys. And a number of people through other social media, in particular Facebook. I don't have a Facebook channel, but or any of that stuff. I just stay on YouTube. That's it. But there's a lot of people apparently on Facebook that are sharing my videos. I don't really know all the people who are doing this, but it's pretty substantial. On my stats, about 21% of people that watched my videos in the past 28 days came from links from Facebook. So I mean, whoever's doing this or the group of people who are doing this, thank you very much. I really appreciate all those shares. It really helps. And all of the thumbs ups really help. And I really do appreciate people taking the time to leave me little messages or sending me private messages or emailing me. Sometimes I don't really get to the emails very often anymore because I'm just so bogged down doing stuff. But I do want to just say I really appreciate everyone. And I really appreciate all the ideas that people have given me over time as well to help me make videos. And also your patience, because sometimes it takes me a few minutes to figure out like what's the next video going to be. And it takes me a few days sometimes to make a video. I just kind of do it on my spare time. So I just want to thank you for that a lot. I really do enjoy, making videos. I may not be the very best at doing it by any means. I'm very much an amateur, but it is nonetheless, it's still fun. It's still fun. And I think a little bit every year I get a little bit better. At least I think I do. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think I get a little bit better at making videos. And, if you make enough of them, you get a little bit better, right? So anyways, you guys take care, and I look forward to talking to you in the next video later on.